Eila and something shiny. This is one of those reviews in which I'm not gonna show the contents of the box. I'm gonna tell you about them. Maybe I'll show the back of the box. But I want to avoid spoilers because this is a story-driven adventure. Discovering the story is the thing. So I definitely want to make sure that even inadvertently I don't share something that I shouldn't. It is a solo game. Of course, I guess you could play with multiple players, experiencing the story together and making decisions together. It has one protagonist, which is Eila, our lovely bunny here. But again, multiple people could control Eila. That's up to you. I played it solo, and I must say there is an intimate feel to that. So maybe that works that way. The game is labeled as for 8-year-old and up. Mechanically, I totally see how an 8-year-old could play the game. I don't see any rules that, especially somebody who grows up in a family of gamers, I don't see anything there that a young player like that couldn't grok easily. But some of the content sometimes can get a little dark. Some of the messages are subtle, and there's a philosophical element, there's an emotional element, which are welcome if you're an adult experiencing this. For a child, I think it could get confusing, or in any case, they wouldn't just appreciate what the story may actually be about, or what are some of the meaning. So right there, you see, don't be fooled by the art, which is adorable. It's just unbearably adorable. It's so cute. But the story can get adult, not in a sexual way, but in terms of the implications of some of the events, which again, I hope by saying this, okay, I'm not going to give it to my children for Christmas. I'm going to buy it for me. Now, mechanically, very interesting. We have seen many games in the last decades. They use decks of cards to either enhance the narrative or to create a narrative altogether. Here it is about decks of cards, and the main idea, again, you may have seen it already, which is you draw a card, it tells you what happens, you may gain resources, you may spend resources, and those resources are represented by very cute wooden tokens representing food, knowledge, that's little books, fear, which is little skulls, even the skulls are cute. So you may collect or spend or lose resources based on what the card says. There's going to be a gorgeous illustration. Every card is beautifully illustrated. There's a narrative that tells you why those things happen. And then you realize that this is a deck building story driven game, meaning that each card at the bottom has some arrows that tell you where the card goes. You may go to a pile that means that card is out of the game, or it can be into another pile called the future. And so that when you go through your deck, which is pretty thin, and you exhaust that deck, that represents one day in-game time. And so then you take your pile called the future, you shuffle it, and you form the pile for the next day, and then you go through that one again. So that means that at the bottom there may be effects that place that card out of the game in the past, or place in the future. That means the card will come back, and also new cards will be placed in the future. I'm going to give you fictional examples so that I don't give you spoilers. Suppose there's a card that says you walk in front of a board game store and you consider buying a certain game. If you buy it now, then the card of buying the game goes in the past, out of the game, and you take another card that goes into the future, and the following day you open your new board game. Or you say, nah, ignore it for now, then that card with the board game store goes in the future. That means tomorrow you'll walk in front of it again and you'll have another opportunity. So some of these things represent opportunities that will be removed once you take the opportunity, or other similar events, or all sort of things. And I was just really pleasantly surprised by I've never seen this done quite this way, a deck building narrative game in which the deck building engine, by adding cards and removing cards, represents, well, enemies that are following you, and they keep following until you defeat them. Then they're out of the game. You know they'll attack you again tomorrow if you don't defeat them right now. things that you know will happen, but then new events that will come out of nowhere. There's also a deck of one-time events that will be triggered by several of these effects. So each scenario sure has an element of routine and unique things, because again, every day maybe you'll make food, every day maybe you'll sing a song and feel better and send the fear away, every day maybe you'll perform a certain job, a certain task, you'll train into something. Again, maybe there is a penalty that will hit you every day, something bad will happen every day. At the same time, new things happen that cause also the story to progress, because again, you want these things to change because you want to complete objectives of the chapters. So mechanically, that's the general idea. Super simple, and yet just so effective. I hadn't seen that done before. Thematically and story-wise, you are Eila, this lovely bunny, and I'm just going to tell you about the prologue, stuff that you know from the prologue. So again, no spoilers there, I believe. A lovely bunny living in this idyllic landscape with your best friend, the tree who protects you and teaches you stuff. But from there, one day you see something shiny on top of a mountain. And so at some point, you decide that you want to go and check that out. And the title tells you, of course, that's the tension of the game. Eila and something shiny. And so Eila embarks on this journey to go and see what is the thing that shines on top of the mountain. The game has 6 chapters, although 5 really, which is a prologue and then 5 main chapters. Each has a box containing the cards that will represent the encounters and new things that you will do. There are some things that you may carry from one scenario to another, but not many. And so you open the box for the scenario you're playing. You should play them in order to enjoy the story. And represents a new area that our Eila is exploring. And from the title, I'll tell you the titles of the chapters. Again, they're here on the back of the box, so you know that you will explore, or you'll have a scenario called the factory, another one called the mine, another one called the castle, and then predictably maybe the mountain. So you know, one will probably be about climbing the mountain. The mine, maybe it'll be about exploring a mine, crawling in a mine, who knows. So, and I can tell you these chapters do work differently. They have unique rules. On top of having a unique deck of cards for what you encounter there, they may have extra game components to create that situation that you're exploring at that point. And so Eila will go through scenario, collecting some items and collecting different habits and skills, and then experiencing different things. So, it's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive the way the story and the engine building is done. Oh, also each box has some booklets with comic books telling you the story. So you have a booklet which tells you the beginning of the chapter, what's happening, sets up the situation, and also the task that you need to complete to win the scenario. Each scenario has a different one. And then some booklets representing possible endings. Each scenario has one main ending, and then there is one or more endings. So you will have several of these booklets with comic books, and depending on which ending you reach through gameplay, then you'll be instructed to read that one. Now, after a couple of those, you kind of realize what the game has in mind, what kind of story the game is in mind. You realize, okay, I reached that ending, but I see how that is not ideal. I feel like the game is kind of like looking at me in a weird way and saying, And things will happen, and of course the story will change depending on which ending you reach. So at the end, you will have a final ending at the end of the last scenario. And I have to tell you, but just the way some of the chapter ending went, I kind of got a sense of where the game was going with the main ending on the mountain. However, keep playing, keep exploring things, and maybe there is a true ending that will be different. Maybe there is a locked. There is a special true ending at the end. And what happens in the true ending, that I did not expect, that I did not see, and that felt quite rewarding. So one concern, one thing is, of course, is always when it comes to story-driven games, the replay value. I think players will relate both ways here, because yes, when you unlock one ending, when you reach the main ending and you realize maybe that's not the best that there is, you will play again through that scenario trying to reach a different ending. But that means that you will be experiencing a lot of the same stuff, a lot of the same encounters. And well, it's up to you. It's like rereading a game book when you realize you already read like most of the paragraphs and you would need to reread like 50, 60 paragraphs to see two that you haven't seen yet. So on one hand, it's high replay value because of multiple scenario. On the other hand, maybe it's not so much because you'll be experiencing the same chains of events many different times. There is a luck element that comes from the fact that we have cards, and sometimes the way they're shuffled, oh, I need to pay that penalty before I get to the card that would allow me to get the resource that I need there, so my penalty is more severe. Those two cards are in different order. That would be different. Later, there will be combat that's introduced in the game, I believe. Otherwise, oops, sorry for the spoiler. That works with dice. Okay, there are dice when you open the box, so I guess that's not too much of a spoiler. So there are dice, and that may matter. And maybe you find items that will mitigate the luck element, but it's going to be there. So, and again, will you restart the whole scenario because of a bad card draw and because of this? You probably should, but if it's maybe the fourth time you play the scenario, because you want to see the different ending, maybe you'll figure out another way of doing it. It's up to you. So the replay value, again, it's I think it's going to be subjective how replayable those multiple endings make the game. But overall, Eila and Something Shiny, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because it felt so different. It felt so unique. Yes, it felt immersive because the art really helps the world of the story come together. It makes it so real, and you really get to care for this little cute bunny and the characters that she interacts with. The story is immersive, the art is beautiful, those wooden tokens representing resources are just very pleasant to manipulate. The story, again, part of it will feel pretty predictable. You'll probably know where it's going from there. But I still enjoyed the progression. The chapters do play very differently from one another, exploring the mind or climbing the mountain or dealing with what happens in the factory or the castle. The castle at the beginning I felt kind of similar to the factory, but then different things happened, so it wasn't that way. So there's variety. There are 6 chapters, 5.5, let's say. And it's fun. It's a fun story to discover with a unique atmosphere and with a way of combining deck building and storytelling that simply I had not seen before. So definitely a positive impression is what I had after completing the campaign of Eila and Something Shiny.